My name is Callista Moreau, and my wedding was supposed to be in 48 hours. Instead, I sat on the edge of my bed with trembling hands, holding a note written in my mother's impossibly perfect cursive. 8 simple words. Wedding's off. Expect a call from my lawyer. They hadn't said goodbye. They hadn't knocked on my bedroom door to explain, argue, cry, or yell. Just a folded piece of monogram stationery left under my morning espresso cup. I hadn't even noticed it until the heat of the mug lifted it up with a whisper. I was still in my pajamas, barefoot, staring at the note like it might turn to ash. I didn't call them. I didn't cry. And I didn't argue. The silence in my flat was louder than a siren. Somewhere downstairs, a street cleaner whirred by, and the noise made my ears ring. I felt like I'd been shoved out of an airplane with no parachute. There was no context, no fight, no warning signs. Or maybe there were, and I was too wrapped up in wedding dress fittings and cake tastings to see it. The note was dated yesterday, so they were already gone. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, not with a call, but a text. Just one word, check. For my older brother, Alaric. I sat still for a moment. Then, like a wind-up toy finally released, I sprang to my feet and padded across the apartment. I opened the drawer where I kept my bank records, passwords, prenup drafts, wedding budget, guest lists, the whole file stack that came with planning a society wedding. I rifled through until I got to the bank statements. My eyes scanned the numbers. There it was, a withdrawal. $30,000. Gone. My parents had transferred the funds from the joint wedding account I shared with them, an account we had all agreed would be used for the venue, florals, and post-wedding honeymoon. $30,000, the exact amount due to the hotel tomorrow for the final payment. They left me with the deposit and a pile of contracts I couldn't break without massive penalties. I would owe the caterers, the musicians, the makeup artists, even the calligrapher who designed the dinner menus. Why? That was the word that rang like a bell through my skull. Why now? What did I miss? I stared at the bank statement until the text on the page blurred. My knees gave out and I slid to the floor, clutching the paper to my chest as if I could press the truth out of it. I sat like that for nearly an hour, too stunned to think. Finally, I stood up. Slowly, deliberately. I took a shower, brushed my hair, put on a black wool turtleneck and dark jeans. I tied my hair back. No makeup. No rings. I walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and poured a glass of wine. I wasn't going to waste any more time in confusion. If they wanted to play games, fine. But I wouldn't play blind. I sat back down and called Alaric. He answered on the first ring. They did it, he said. I know. Have you called them? No, did they call you? A pause. They tried, I didn't pick up. I swallowed. Why did they do this? Another pause, longer this time. Then he said, you need to come to the house. Today, you need to see it for yourself. Alaric, what? Just trust me. He hung up. I stood frozen for a few seconds, heart pounding, then I grabbed my coat and keys. My parents' estate was in Northumberland, a sprawling Georgian manor surrounded by high stone walls, vineyards, and secrets. I hadn't been back in over 3 months, not since the engagement party, when Mother spent the entire evening correcting my posture and critiquing the playlist. The drive took 3 hours. It felt like 15. When I finally pulled through the wrought iron gates, the property looked different. The lawn wasn't manicured. There were dead leaves gathered around the fountain, which had been shut off. One of the windows was boarded. The gatehouse was empty. Alaric was already there. He stood on the front steps, hands in his coat pockets, his eyes shadowed by exhaustion. It's worse than I thought, he said. He led me inside without another word. The grand foyer, once pristine with its black and white marble floors and chandelier, was dark, dusty, furniture covered with white sheets like ghosts of a better time. What happened here? I whispered. Follow me. We went into the drawing room. The fireplace was cold. The bar cart was empty. Alaric handed me a folder. Inside were printed documents, debts, loans, lawsuits, unpaid property taxes. He flicked through them quickly. They've been hemorrhaging money, quietly, selling off assets. And when that wasn't enough, they pulled your wedding funds. Probably to cover the retainer for that lawyer they mentioned. I gripped the folder, my fingers curling around the edges. They're suing me? For what? Alaric looked away. They're suing for breach of filial duty, claiming you misrepresented your future husband's background to exploit their wealth. I blinked. That's not even a real thing. They found a way to make it sound like it is. The lawyer they hired is vicious. They're arguing that your fiancé, Ronan, only pursued you for financial gain, and you knew it. I sat down slowly, knees suddenly weak. But that's not true. Ronan doesn't even know how much money we have. Doesn't matter, they want to ruin you. I felt the world shifting under me. My parents had always been difficult, controlling, obsessed with appearances, judgmental. But this was war. Why now? Alaric hesitated. Then he pulled out a photograph from his coat pocket and handed it to me. It was a photo of my father, with a woman, much younger, blonde, laughing as he leaned in close to her. Not my mother. The timestamp was from 2 weeks ago. They're covering something up, Alaric said, and they needed to eliminate you from the picture before it all came out. My phone buzzed. A new number. I answered. A clipped voice spoke. Miss Moreau, this is Attorney Dorian Black. I represent your parents. We will be moving forward with legal action unless a settlement is reached within 24 hours. I've sent the proposed terms to your email. I didn't reply. He hung up. Alaric watched me. What are you going to do? I stood. My voice was quiet but steady. They declared war. I'll show them I know how to win one. Alaric smiled grimly. Then you'd better start with the lawyer. And fast. My phone buzzed again. Email notification. Subject line. Legal terms for settlement. Urgent. I clicked it open. And felt my stomach drop. The terms weren't just bad. They were lethal. They wanted me to forfeit all claims to my inheritance, remove my name from family trusts, issue a public statement distancing myself from them, and sign a non-disclosure agreement barring me from discussing anything, ever. I was staring down the barrel of financial erasure. I closed the email and looked at Alaric. I need a lawyer, not just any lawyer, someone who understands their games, someone they fear. Alaric nodded. I have a name, but it's going to cost. I smirked. They took my money, they didn't take my leverage. And that was true. Because I had something they didn't know I had. Something that could burn the entire kingdom to ash if I wanted it to. A vault. And inside it? Records. Papers. Confessions. From years of secrets my parents thought were buried. And now, I would use them. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. Alaric and I drove back to London in silence. The sky outside the window blurred into a heavy gray wash, and rain began tapping against the windshield like a ticking clock. I sat in the passenger seat, hands clenched around the flash drive I had retrieved from my old bedroom's floorboard safe before we left the estate. My parents had no idea I had it. Years of documents, digital recordings, emails. Every time they'd hushed a scandal or brokered a backroom deal, I'd kept a quiet record. Not out of malice. Back then, it had been for protection. Now it was war. How well do you know this lawyer? I asked, finally breaking the silence. Alaric glanced over. I met her once at a securities litigation conference. She eats hedge fund managers for breakfast and doesn't blink in front of high court judges. That sounds promising. Her name's Rowan Hart. Runs her own firm now, doesn't advertise, only takes referrals. Is she good with press? This will go public. She's a magician with a restraining order. We pulled up outside a narrow office building tucked between a bookstore and a wine bar. From the outside, it didn't look like a legal fortress. It looked like the kind of place where antique dealers might host quiet auctions. But inside, it was all glass and dark leather, sleek and sharp. Rowan Hart was already waiting. She stood the moment we entered, extending her hand. Callista Moreau, I've heard your name many times. Hopefully not just from my mother. Her lips twitched. No, from your university law professors. You were top of your class at Oxford, weren't you? I blinked. I was. Then let's skip the part where I pretend to talk down to you. Sit. We sat across a mahogany table. Rowan snapped open a laptop and pulled up a file already titled The Moreau Strategy. I read the settlement proposal your parents sent. It is, in a word, outrageous. And illegal in half a dozen ways. They can't sever you from the trust without board consent. And the board is split. So they plan to oust you with optics. Optics? They'll paint you as disloyal, disruptive, a traitor to the family name. Then, when the press catches wind of your scandalous engagement, they force a board vote to remove you as beneficiary. I leaned forward. Then we beat them to it. We tell the truth first. Rowan arched a brow. You're willing to burn that bridge? Publicly? Quote, they blew it up with dynamite. I'm just using the ashes. Alaric reached into his coat and handed her the flash drive. This has records, paper trails, everything from 2014 to last month. The kind of things that could cost them their position in half a dozen partnerships. Rowan took the drive delicately, like it was a grenade with the pin still in. This will change the game, but it's not without cost. You'll be targeted. Media scrutiny. Your name in every gossip rag from here to Monaco. Good, let them look at me. At least they'll stop pretending my parents are saints. Rowan studied me for a moment, then she smiled, not kindly, like a shark showing its teeth. Then let's go to war. By nightfall, the first steps had already been taken. Rowan filed a motion, blocking the settlement's enforceability, citing coercion and breach of fiduciary duty. The media, quiet until now, received a leak, a strategic leak, hinting that the Moreaus were under investigation for corporate misconduct. I watched it unfold from my flat, hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had long gone cold. Alaric stayed the night, half asleep on my couch with his laptop open on his chest. My phone buzzed constantly. Ronan hadn't called yet. That part hurt more than I expected. He wasn't just my fiancé. He was the man who said he loved me more than legacy, more than money. But now? Silence. At 2 a.m., I texted him, call me. He didn't. By morning, everything had changed. My name was trending, #Callista Moreau. Headlines speculated everything from criminal enterprise to being disinherited over a secret love affair. News anchors debated whether I had betrayed the family's trust or finally exposed their corruption. I didn't speak. Not yet. Let them speculate. That was part of Rowan's plan. Never speak until they beg for your words, she had said. That's how you control the narrative. By midday, Rowan called. We have a problem. Your mother just held a press conference. I scrambled to open the live stream. There she stood, flawless as ever, in a cream Chanel suit, tears in her eyes. Our daughter is very troubled. She has fallen under the influence of unsavory individuals. Our family is devastated, but we cannot allow her choices to endanger our legacy. She was gaslighting the entire world. I stared at the screen, rage building in my throat like bile. Then my phone buzzed. Ronan. I picked up immediately. Callista, he said, voice low. You need to come see me, now. Where are you? At the apartment, but I can't talk on the phone. Just come. I didn't wait. I grabbed my coat, slipped on flats, and bolted out the door. The city blurred around me in a haze of noise and light. I reached his place in 20 minutes flat. He opened the door the second I knocked. And he wasn't alone. 2 men in suits stood behind him. Ronan's face was pale. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. What is this? I asked. They need to talk to you, he said, voice barely a whisper. They say it's urgent. The taller man stepped forward. Miss Moreau, we're with the FCA. We're investigating irregular financial activity involving your family. And now, possibly your fiancé? I stared at Ronan. What did you do? He looked stricken. I didn't know. Callista, I swear to you, I didn't know. The other agent pulled out a folder and flipped it open. Miss Moreau, are you aware that your wedding account was used to make 3 international wire transfers 2 days ago, totaling just over £400,000? I froze. That account was closed. They drained it. It wasn't closed, not completely. The activity points to your fiancé's IP address. I turned to Ronan. Tell me it's not true. He opened his mouth and said nothing. We need you to come with us, one agent said. We'll need a statement. Ronan finally spoke. Callista, I was set up. Your parents, they told me they were protecting you. That this was all part of keeping you safe from an investment scandal. They offered me money to step back. I didn't take it. I swear. But they used my credentials to move the money. I took a step back, heart pounding in my ears. Rowan had warned me. When you break away from a dynasty, they don't just let you walk, they make sure you bleed. But I wasn't going to bleed quietly. I turned to the agents. I'll come with you, I have records, evidence, and one hell of a reason to make this case personal. They nodded. And just as I turned, Ronan caught my wrist. You have to believe me, Callista. I didn't know. I would never hurt you. I met his eyes and realized something. Whether he was lying or not didn't matter, because my entire life had been built on people I thought I could trust. And now I trusted no one. Not anymore. Not until I tore every last lie into the light and buried the dynasty that tried to bury me first. The interior of the FCA building smelled like old air and new ink. I sat under fluorescent lights in a windowless room with a carafe of lukewarm coffee between me and two government agents. I wasn't handcuffed. I wasn't being charged. Yet. But the tension in the room was so thick I could taste it. Agent Cromley leaned forward. Miss Moreau, let's start from the beginning. When was the last time you personally accessed the wedding account? 3 days ago. I checked the balance. It was already empty. And you didn't authorize any wire transfers in the amount of £400,000? No. The only authorized transactions were wedding expenses. Most of those hadn't even been billed yet. Did anyone else have access to the account credentials? I hesitated. My parents and Ronan. Cromley and his partner glanced at each other. Was there any agreement between your family and Mr. Theroux involving financial compensation? Not that I was aware of. We're going to need your written statement, access to any digital records, and the names of every vendor involved with the wedding. I can get that. I also have something else. A vault of private records. Emails, recordings, financial documents. They go back over 10 years. My family has a history of laundering through trusts and ghost companies. I suspect this is part of that. Cromley sat up straighter. Do you have any idea what kind of pressure you're inviting by bringing this forward? You mean retaliation? I mean industrial sabotage, blackmail, public assassination of character. I smiled coldly. They already started that campaign the moment they left me that note, so yes, I'm very clear. It took me 6 hours to finish the interview. When I emerged, blinking into daylight, I found Rowan waiting for me beside a black cab, a phone pressed to her ear. She gave me a nod, hung up, and opened the door. We need to talk, she said, in private. Inside the cab, Rowan pulled out her tablet and handed it to me. The press has already turned. Your mother's narrative isn't sticking. Public opinion is starting to fracture. On the screen were headlines. Time, asterisk, billionaire heiress or corporate whistleblower, asterisk. Asterisk, Moreau matriarch may have lied about daughter's allegiance. Asterisk. Asterisk. New evidence links wedding account to offshore transfers. I handed it back. They're finally paying attention. Only because you're the villain they didn't expect to root for, Rowan said. That makes you dangerous, which means we have to stay ahead. She pulled a second folder from her briefcase. Your father just moved the rest of the family trust to Luxembourg. He's hiding the funds in a private equity vehicle disguised under a shell group. He's trying to lock you out before the injunction hits. Then we move faster. It gets worse. The private investigator I hired discovered something, a backdated prenup. Prenup? For me and Ronan? No, for your parents. They signed it days before your mother gave birth to Alaric. It states that all assets transferred into the marriage, after a specific date, belong solely to your father. If the press finds it, Your mother loses her standing. She becomes expendable. He's throwing her under the bus. Exactly, which means she'll get desperate, and desperate women do stupid things. I leaned my head back against the seat. Do we have access to their legal team's communications? Rowan smiled faintly. We will. I just sent a subpoena. I didn't go home that night. Rowan booked me into a secure apartment under an alias. No social media, no phone, just me, the documents, and a spiral-bound notebook where I outlined every single date I could remember from the last 10 years. Every odd encounter, every closed-door meeting, every whispered phone call. At 3:27 a.m., I found it. A date. November 14th, 2019. The night of the Moreau Foundation Gala, my father left early, said he had a migraine. But that was the same night a dormant offshore account received a mysterious deposit of £2 million from a Singaporean firm that no one could trace. I flipped through the vault files. There it was. An encrypted email thread, my father, an anonymous banker, and a code, M419C. I copied it and sent it to Rowan through our secure line. 10 minutes later, she replied, "You found the shell." The next morning, Rowan went on the offensive. She drafted a public brief and sent it to every major financial publication in Europe. It laid out the web of Moreau shell companies and included anonymized documents tracing illegal tax shelters and investment manipulations. She left out names. For now. Within hours, the Moreau name tanked in the market. Board members from 3 partner firms pulled out. A major European bank suspended talks with my father's holding company. He had built a kingdom of shadows. And I just turned on the floodlights. That evening, a letter arrived by courier. Hand-delivered. It was sealed with red wax. I opened it carefully. It wasn't from my parents. It was from my godmother, Lucinda Alderidge. The one member of our extended family, who had always been half in, half out. A former board member herself. She'd walked away from the Moreaus a decade ago, citing irreconcilable ethical differences. Inside the envelope was a short note. Meet me at midnight. Pier 7, come alone. I stared at it. Rowan glanced at the note. Do you trust her? More than anyone else in the family, which isn't saying much. I'll follow discreetly. At 11:55 p.m., I arrived at the pier. It was misty and quiet, waves lapping against rusted metal, streetlights flickering in the distance. Lucinda appeared from the shadows wearing a navy trench and black gloves. Callista, she said, arms crossed, you look like your mother used to. Before the money. You asked me to come. Yes, because you have one shot at surviving this. And I'm the only one who can help you make it. Why? Because I've seen what they do to their own when they feel betrayed, and you just lit the match to their entire empire. Then help me burn it to the ground. She studied me for a long moment, then she pulled out a flash drive from her coat pocket. This contains the board's private meeting logs from the last 8 years, including discussions about trust restructuring and beneficiary eliminations. It also contains video files. One of them, well, let's just say your father has more skeletons than closets. Why now? Why give this to me? Because I thought you'd end up like them, spineless and gilded. But here you are, standing in the cold at midnight, fighting with fire in your eyes. She handed me the drive. Use it, or don't. But if you don't, they win. She turned to go, then paused. Oh, and Callista? Yes? Watch your back. Your mother just hired someone who doesn't go through lawyers. My stomach tightened. What kind of someone? Lucinda vanished into the mist. And that's when I saw the red dot flicker across my coat. I dropped instantly, behind the pier's concrete edge. A shot rang out, missed. I rolled, crawled, my pulse pounding in my throat. From behind a rusted beam, I reached for my phone. One text to Rowan. I have the files. I think someone just tried to kill me. My hands were still trembling when I reached the safe house. Rowan was already there. She took one look at me, soaked, bleeding from a shallow cut on my elbow, eyes wide from pure adrenaline, and didn't ask a single question. "Inside," she said firmly, ushering me through 2 layers of security doors. "Now." I collapsed onto the leather couch and pulled the flash drive from my coat. The metal was warm from where I'd been gripping it so hard. "It was a sniper," I said hoarsely. Rowan didn't flinch. She took the drive and slid it into her laptop. "You're sure?" "Red dot, 1 shot," Lucinda warned me. Then she vanished. I don't even know if she got out. "If she survived, she'll know not to contact you directly again." "And if she didn't?" Rowan didn't answer. She was already typing. "I'm encrypting and backing up this drive to 4 off-site cloud locations. 1 in Iceland, 2 in the Caymans, and 1 in Zurich. Even if they burn this place down, the data survives." I nodded numbly, watching her work. The whir of the laptop fan filled the silence like a low warning growl. "What's on the drive?" I asked. "Everything. Internal board minutes. Video of your father paying off a whistleblower. A recording from 2 years ago, where your mother casually admits to using foundation donations to buy a villa in Sardinia under a false name. That alone is enough to ruin her. That's not the worst of it." Rowan clicked open a folder titled Obsidian. Inside were 4 files. 1 audio, 1 PDF, 2 videos. She clicked the audio file. A recording crackled to life. My father's voice. "If she won't walk away quietly, we take care of it." Another voice. "How quietly?" Father again. "Accidents happen." Silence. Then laughter. The kind of laughter you don't unhear. Rowan paused it. "That conversation happened 5 days ago." My mouth went dry. He was planning to kill me before the wedding. Or shortly after. But yes. "And Ronan?" Rowan shook her head. "Still under surveillance. His story checks out. The transfers from his credentials were forged. We found a phantom routing signature in the data trail. Your mother's signature." I let my head fall into my hands. "We can't keep running defense. We need to move first. Hard." Rowan agreed. "The time for whispers is over. We're going public. Full statement. You. Live." I froze. "You want me to go on camera?" "Not just any camera. You're going to sit down with Imogen Clive. Primetime anchor. International syndication." She's agreed. "That'll trigger the lawsuit." "Let them. Then we countersue." I exhaled slowly. "Okay, I'll do it. When?" "Tonight?" By 6 p.m., I was sitting under harsh studio lights in a borrowed silk blouse, a discreet lav mic clipped to my collar. Imogen Clive sat across from me, perfectly poised. "You ready?" she asked gently. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." "Good. That means it'll be honest." The red light on the camera blinked on. Imogen looked straight into the lens. "Tonight, an exclusive. The heiress behind one of Europe's most powerful dynasties breaks her silence. Calista Moreau joins us now." I inhaled. And began. "My name is Calista Moreau. Until 4 days ago, I was preparing for a wedding. I thought my family supported me. I was wrong. I told everything. The wedding account. The note. The fabricated legal threats. The shell companies. The evidence. They didn't just disown me," I said, voice steady. "They tried to erase me, silence me, and when that didn't work, they tried to kill me." Imogen blinked. "You're saying there was an attempt on your life?" "Yes, I have proof. It's in the hands of the Financial Conduct Authority and my legal team." "And you believe your own parents orchestrated it?" "I don't believe it. I know it." Silence. Then Imogen said, "What now?" I leaned forward. "Now? I finish what they started, and I expose every lie this dynasty was built on." The interview went live across 3 networks and 15 affiliate feeds. Within hours, I was receiving messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Classmates, former colleagues, ex-friends, even my old piano teacher. But it was the anonymous tips that mattered. Rowan compiled them. Whistleblowers, past employees, government workers, ex-security contractors, all with information, all willing to testify, many with recordings, receipts, timestamps. My parents' empire began to implode in real time. But then came the retaliation. My credit cards were frozen. A false report was leaked claiming I had embezzled from the family trust. Anonymous death threats started flooding in. A video surfaced, doctored, showing me allegedly assaulting a wedding planner. It was clearly a composite, but it didn't matter. People shared it anyway. Rowan filed an emergency injunction. But the damage was done. "This is only going to get nastier," she warned. "They have nothing left to protect except the illusion, and illusions are lethal when they're shattered. Let them come, I'm not afraid." Quote, but part of me was. Not of them. Of how far I might have to go to finish this. That night, as I reviewed files on a tablet Rowan had secured, I found something strange. An encrypted message. Buried in a folder labeled Essex Renovation Archives. It required a password. I tried my old birthday. No. My mother's maiden name. No. Then I remembered. The first piano song I ever played in front of an audience. Claire de Lune. I typed it in. The folder opened. Inside was a single file, video_feed_claw. I clicked. It was grainy CCTV footage, no timestamp, but I recognized the room, one of the storage vaults at our family's London property. I had played in that room as a child. The footage showed my father. And a girl. Younger, brunette, scared. I stared. Then my blood ran cold. She looked like me, but she wasn't me. She couldn't be more than 15. In the footage, my father placed a folder in her lap, spoke to her. She shook her head. He raised his hand. The footage cut. I stared at the screen. "Rowan!" She rushed in. "Look at this." She watched, then rewound, watched again. "That's not you?" "No." "Then who the hell is she?" "I don't know." But I had a terrifying suspicion. My father once said I wasn't the first to disappoint him. And that meant I might not be the only daughter. The next morning, I didn't wake up so much as jolt upright from a shallow, uneasy sleep. The image of the girl from the CCTV footage had tattooed itself behind my eyelids. Her face was familiar in a way that shook me to my core, not just because of the resemblance, but because something in her eyes mirrored a look I'd seen in my own reflection before I escaped the manor for good. The quiet panic of someone trying to appear obedient while burning inside. She wasn't just some innocent girl caught in my father's web. She was connected to me. I could feel it. Rowan was already up. She had been all night. "There's no digital footprint of her," she said, handing me a cup of coffee that smelled too strong for the hour. "Nothing that matches her face in any public databases. No school records. No adoption papers. It's like she doesn't exist." But that footage was real, and my father knew her. Rowan nodded, tired but razor sharp. "We have two options. She's a distant relative they kept secret, or she's not supposed to be alive." The words hit me like a sledgehammer. What does that mean? Quote, "If they buried a scandal that large, like an abandoned daughter or a child born outside the marriage, it would explain why your parents are unraveling this hard and fast. It's not just about you, it's about what else might be exposed if you keep digging." She pulled out her laptop. "Now watch this." She loaded a clip from a discreetly obtained security cam across from the manor grounds. In the early morning footage, a woman climbed into a car from the garden entrance. She was in her 20s, hair longer now, same bone structure, same haunted eyes. "That was taken yesterday," Rowan said. "She left through the greenhouse wing. That wing was decommissioned last year. She's still there. She's been supporties there." Rowan leaned back. "Your father has a hidden dependent. That changes everything. We need to find her. We can't rush in. She may be terrified, indoctrinated, or worse, used as leverage. We play this wrong, we lose everything." I paced the room. I can't just let this go. I know she's real. I felt it. And if she's been kept a secret, she may hold the key to the entire Moreau house of lies. Rowan looked up from her screen. You think she's your sister, don't you? I stopped pacing. Yes, I do. We reached out to Lucinda again. She didn't respond. Rowan traced her last credit card transaction to a pharmacy near York, then nothing. No CCTV, no new charges, no hotel logs. She's gone underground. Or worse, Rowan muttered. This is getting tight. A courier knocked on the secure door that afternoon. He carried a manila envelope marked with no return address. Rowan checked for tracking devices, then opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Of me. Standing next to Ronan, but not a candid shot. This one was from a high angle, grainy, recent, clearly taken without our knowledge. Behind us, in the distance, was a shadowy figure. The girl. Someone had followed her. The back of the photo was scrawled in red ink. You're getting too close. I couldn't sit still anymore. By dusk, I was in a black rental car parked a quarter mile from the Moreau estate, staring at the iron gates. The same gates I had once walked through as a child, wearing velvet dresses and patent leather shoes, unaware of the blood price paid to maintain the illusion. Rowan stayed on comms. You're not going inside without backup. I'm not. I just want to see. I need to know she's real. Through binoculars, I scanned the east greenhouse wing. Foliage choked the once manicured hedges. A light flickered deep inside, a small, wavering glow. Then, movement. A figure. She emerged cautiously. Same gait. Thin frame. She held a small canvas bag and crept toward the side path where deliveries used to be dropped off. I hit the car lights. She froze like a deer. I stepped out slowly, hands raised. I'm not here to hurt you, please. I just want to talk. She didn't move. My name is Callista. I think we may be sisters, she said, almost inaudibly. I stopped breathing. You know me? She nodded. They said you were gone, that you left us, that you didn't care. My heart splintered. I didn't know you existed. I swear to you, they lied. They lied to both of us. Tears welled in her eyes. I've been here since I was 7, hidden, under tutors and silence. I only saw the world through books, until I climbed out of the greenhouse. I stepped closer. What's your name? She hesitated. Alina. Alina, I whispered. I'm going to get you out, safely, for good. You don't have to hide anymore. You can't. They watch everything. Even now, someone will be coming. Then come with me now. She shook her head violently. No, not yet. I have things hidden. I know things they did to other people. I can help you. But I have to go back tonight. Just for tonight. Please don't. She pressed a folded paper into my hand. Read this. It's a key. I'll come to you tomorrow night. Don't come back here. It's not safe. She turned and disappeared into the garden path before I could stop her. I stared down at the paper. A series of names, dates, locations, every one of them matching known business deals my father had kept classified, and 2 of the names were circled. One of them was a judge currently overseeing the family trust litigation. The other? A man who had been presumed dead for 5 years. I drove back in silence. Rowan was waiting, jaw tense, eyes wide. You saw her? Yes, her name is Alina, and she knows everything. That name, on the list she gave you, you recognize it? The one marked deceased? I nodded slowly. Sebastian Lorne, financial director, went missing after exposing trust fraud in Luxembourg. My father claimed he drowned on a sailing trip. Rowan leaned forward. If he's alive, and if your sister knows where, that's checkmate. If we can find him before they do. Just then, Rowan's phone lit up. She read the message. Her face went pale. Callista, your mother just froze your entire remaining assets. Not the trusts, the personal ones. She pulled emergency levers and filed a fraud complaint in your name. She's trying to starve me out. You're going to be locked out of everything by morning. I sat down, calm settling over me like a coat of armor. Then we hit back. Now, not tomorrow, not next week, now. Rowan stood. I'll prep the injunctions. But if you want to win this, we need to move Alina, and we need to find Sebastian Lorne. I unfolded the paper again. There was one more thing scribbled faintly in the corner, almost an afterthought. Asterisk, Obsidian 2.0. Storage Vault C under the manor. Ask for Iris. Asterisk. There's another vault, I whispered. Rowan looked up. What kind of vault? I think it's where all the bodies are buried. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. Rowan didn't blink when I showed her the note again. The words, Obsidian 2.0, Storage Vault C under the manor. Ask for Iris were barely legible, but they hit like thunderclaps. Iris, Rowan murmured. We thought Obsidian was the only archive. A vault like that hidden under the manor means they're keeping the most damning evidence somewhere physical. And Iris is the gatekeeper, I said, assuming she's even alive. We'll find out, tonight. Rowan canceled all our legal meetings. We packed light, 2 burner phones, a high-res mini camera, encrypted drive backups, voice recorders, and black jackets stitched with Kevlar plates. She handed me a small pen. If anything goes wrong, click it once. It sends our location to my firm and alerts an extraction team. Twice, and it scrambles any electronics within a 10-meter radius. 3 times, it deletes everything, even this conversation. I stared at it. You've done this before. Not with a client, only as a daughter. She didn't elaborate. The sun dropped below the trees as we made our way back to Northumberland. Rowan stayed behind the wheel of the unmarked black car while I slipped into the estate through the forgotten gardener's gate, one I knew had a faulty latch that my father never bothered to fix. I moved through the shadows of my old home, each creak of the floorboards beneath my feet echoing in my spine, past the unused library, the ballroom with its covered chandeliers, down a hallway so narrow only one person could walk through at a time. Then, the cellar stairs. My pulse was deafening in my ears. I reached the bottom and faced the old wine vault, or what was once called that. A heavy, triple-locked iron door was built into the wall. Storage Vault C. I knocked once. Nothing. I knocked again. This time, a small panel slid open. 2 gray eyes stared out. Who are you? A brittle voice asked. Callista Moreau. I was told to ask for Iris. A long pause. Then, the sound of bolts unlocking. The door groaned open. Standing in front of me was a woman no taller than 5 feet, in her 70s, with wiry white hair and surgical gloves. Her face was sharp, bird-like, calculated. You're late, she said. You were expecting me? I was expecting someone. Alina left a note tucked into a supply crate yesterday. She's not as stealthy as she thinks. Come in. I followed Iris into the vault. It wasn't a room, it was a bunker. Walls lined with shelves, notebooks, hard drives, medical files, birth records, asset transfers, CCTV backups, tapes, actual magnetic tapes, in sealed metal canisters. What is this place? The archive. Everything your family ever hid lives down here. It started as a ledger room, became a sanctuary for sins. Your mother never stepped foot inside. Said it made her skin crawl. Why did you keep all this? Because I remembered what happened to the others who asked questions. Because I knew one day, someone would come for the truth. She paused beside a cabinet labeled 1997 to 2002, unclassified. She pulled out a folder. You want to know about Alina? Start here. Inside were documents. A birth certificate. No father listed. Mother listed only as Subject 9A. What does that mean? Your father's code for women who were options. Not wives, not mistresses, just options. I felt bile rise in my throat. You mean he? Recruited, sometimes coerced, sometimes worse. This child was the only one he kept. The others were lost. Lost? Dead, Sold. Vanished. I backed away, horrified. Why didn't anyone stop him? Because he made himself untouchable. Iris turned and unlocked a steel drawer. Inside was a list. At the top, recipients of the Moreau Protection Program. Over 200 names. Journalists, judges, CEOs, officials. Paid, threatened, controlled. At the bottom, in red ink, was a single phrase. Times asterisk, if the bloodline breaks, the empire dies. Asterisk. I stepped out of the bunker dazed. Rowan pulled me into the car without asking questions. We drove to a small cottage Rowan used as a secondary safe house. No surveillance, no signal. Once inside, I collapsed into a chair. He created a secret child from a woman he cataloged as a number, then kept her hidden for 2 decades. Rowan stared out the window. The vault confirms what we suspected. Your father didn't just operate in shadows. He built his kingdom on them. And now, with Alina emerging, and that evidence in hand, the entire board will panic. Then, let's make them panic faster. I passed her the list from the drawer. She scanned it. Some of these names, they're still active in the government, and they're about to be exposed. By the next morning, 3 judges recused themselves from any Moreau-related litigation. 2 resignations hit the news, and a financial regulator's mansion was raided by police. The cracks weren't just spreading, they were splitting open. Then Alina called. I only have a minute, she whispered. Someone searched my room, they took the photos. But they didn't find the drives. I hid them in the piano bench. I'll bring them to you tonight. Are you safe? No, but I'm not staying here another night. I've waited 15 years to leave. Tonight's the last. Text me when you move. I'll meet you halfway. Callista. Yes? If I don't show up, make sure they don't erase me again. I choked back tears. You'll show up. I know you will. At midnight, I waited by the edge of the field just beyond the Moreau orchard, where the moonlight turned the tall grass silver. I watched the tree line. Then movement. A figure. Small, fast. I held my breath. Alina! She ran into view. And just as she did, a loud crack. Gunfire. She screamed. I bolted forward. More gunshots. I tackled her into the grass. Are you hit? No. Another shot. A drone buzzed above us. Rowan's voice came through the earpiece. You're compromised. Get out now, I've called the team. I pulled Alina to her feet and we sprinted through the field, heart pounding, feet slipping in the wet grass. Headlights blinked at the edge of the road. An SUV. Rowan. She flung open the doors. We dove in. Go! I shouted. The vehicle peeled off just as more shots rang out behind us. We didn't look back. Only forward. Safe house. Dawn. Alina lay asleep on a cot, clutching the piano bench drive like a lifeline. Rowan sat across from me. Tomorrow we go nuclear, she said. Every file. Every name. Every confession. We leak it all. Even if it destroys us. Especially if it does. And I knew then. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everyone who had ever been buried to keep my family clean. It was about the empire collapsing. From the inside. Alina didn't sleep long. By the time sunlight filtered into the safe house kitchen, she was seated at the table cross-legged, hair tied in a braid, sorting through the contents of the piano bench drive like a surgeon prepping for high-stakes triage. She was nothing like the caged girl I'd first met in the garden. She was calm now, focused, determined. They hid things in plain sight, she said, sliding another folder across the table. Each file is labeled with a classical music title. The real data is buried under layers of decoy formats. You wouldn't know unless you tried opening a .mp3 as raw binary. Rowan leaned in, brow furrowed. This is professional obfuscation, not just some rich man's paranoia. Because it wasn't just father, Alina said. It was a network. She pulled out a digital blueprint. This isn't a family scandal, this is organized rot. We spent the next 6 hours cataloging everything. Rowan sent encrypted packets to 3 legal contacts in Geneva, Munich, and Washington, D.C. Each document matched a point on the map. Offshore accounts. Underground black sites. Silent equity takeovers. We found passports with faces I recognized, senior government officials under aliases, journalists on payroll, charity heads laundering money through relief funds. This could collapse half the institutions in Europe, Rowan said. Then it needs to. I uploaded the final folder, labeled Obelisk Alpha. Inside were files marked with the names of deceased individuals, some dating back 20 years. Each file included medical records, photos, audio recordings, confessions, and a final document titled Times * Emergency Protocol Should Callista Become Non-Compliant. *. I opened it. Inside were instructions to assassinate me. Not figuratively, not career-wise. Literally. They had planned to kill me since the beginning. I stepped outside into the cold morning air, nausea tightening in my throat. I had been a threat to them the moment I stopped nodding and smiling. Everything, the note, the account sabotage, even Ronan's entanglement, had been part of a long-designed contingency plan. I leaned against the railing. Rowan followed. They knew you'd rebel, she said. They planned for it. They didn't plan for Alina. No, they forgot the girl in the greenhouse. Alina stepped out, holding a drive. I found something else. She plugged it into the outdoor laptop Rowan kept offline. A video appeared. It was grainy, surveillance footage from the Manor's Upper North Corridor. Father. Walking with a man. Sebastian Lorne. He wasn't dead. Not only was he alive, he was working with my father again, and the footage was time-stamped last week. He faked his disappearance, Rowan said, eyes locked to the screen. Why? Because he never defected. He infiltrated the FCA. He's their eyes and ears. I rubbed my forehead. We trusted his disappearance. We used it as leverage. The media used it as validation. It was bait, Alina said. I snapped my fingers. He's the one who leaked the idea that father was moving the trust offshore. That move forced a rash reaction from our side. And made the media look at the wrong vault, Rowan added. Alina stared at the screen. I know where he is. It was an estate on the coast. A cliffside villa in Dover with security contracts linked to Moreau subsidiary corporations. If we find him, I said, we make him talk. Rowan raised an eyebrow. You sure you're ready for that? They sent someone to kill my sister. They sent someone to kill me. They think they can operate behind glass. Let's break it. That night, we approached the Dover estate with the help of a contact Rowan trusted, an ex-CIA analyst named Nico who specialized in extraction ops. You want to talk or capture? He asked. Both. In that order. We entered at 2:13 a.m. No alarms. No resistance. We found Sebastian in the East Wing study, alone, reading. He looked up, smiled faintly. Callista. You're supposed to be dead. So were ideals. Cut the theater. You've been working with my father. You sabotaged the FCA investigation. He sighed and closed his book. Because your father is a monster. But monsters are predictable. The institutions trying to take him down? They're worse. They're parasites. They feed off exposure, not justice. Rowan stepped forward. You fed them lies. You sold false narratives. I gave them distractions, while the real files stayed buried. And Alina? I asked. I didn't know she was alive, I swear. We don't believe you. Alina entered the room then. Sebastian stared. You look just like your mother. Quote, who was she? He exhaled. An informant. She infiltrated your father's network. She was killed when the mission failed. And me? Collateral. Sace. We recorded every word. uploaded it before we even left. By the next morning, Sebastian was in protective custody. Rowan ensured the tapes hit every credible journalist and legal firm across the continent. The internet exploded. #Obsidian leaks trended. News anchors wept on air reading the contents. The Moreau family name became synonymous with rot. But the board hadn't fallen. Not yet. 3 days later, Rowan called a public hearing. We sat in the press room of a London courthouse, under chandeliers that once graced coronation halls. She laid out everything. Alina testified. So did I. Rowan introduced the list, the documents, the footage. My parents weren't there. But they were watching. The hearing ended with a ruling. The Moreau assets were frozen, all pending legal ownership transferred to a neutral auditor. The trust was no longer controlled by the family. A formal investigation was launched into tax crimes, trafficking, blackmail, and bribery. And then, a new arrest. My mother, caught on a yacht off the coast of Greece attempting to flee. We watched the news in silence. Alina sipped tea. Rowan stared out the window. I breathed for the first time in weeks. And then Rowan turned to me. There's one name we haven't touched yet. Who? She handed me a folder. Inside was a photo of me, smiling, arm in arm with a woman I didn't recognize. Who is this? Someone who's been watching you for years. Why? Because she thought you might one day take your father down. And now? Now she wants to help. The woman in the photo wasn't unfamiliar, not entirely. She had the kind of face that slipped beneath memory like a needle under skin. Delicate, but designed to pierce. In the image, she wore a slate-gray trench coat, black sunglasses, and the kind of smile I'd come to associate with people who knew too much. This was taken in Vienna, Rowan said, tapping the glossy surface with her finger. 2019. I've never been to Vienna. No, she said. But she made it look like you had. That's how good she is. Who is she? Rowan flipped the folder shut. Her name is Isolde, no last name. She goes by aliases, Greybird, Marion Doe, Lenka. Your father knew her, at least. He thought he did. She operated as a fixer in his early expansion days. But somewhere along the way, she vanished. And you think she's watching me now? Not watching, Rowan said, testing. Rowan traced Isolde to a private contact in Prague. An information broker named Tolik, who operated from an abandoned theater, turned underground data exchange. We flew that night. The plane was silent. Alina pressed her forehead to the window, watching stars flicker like Morse code. She hadn't said much since her testimony. I knew why. We had won the first battle. But peace didn't come when the headlines did. It came when you stopped waking up, afraid someone would end your story before you could finish writing it. The broker met us under dim chandeliers that used to illuminate opera performances. Now they swung above fiber optic cables, blinking servers, and rows of aging computers guarded by silent men with no insignias. Tolik wore gloves. One hand scarred, one ringed with brass. You seek the woman who doesn't want to be found, he said in a thick Eastern accent. She saw something she shouldn't, and became what your father feared most, a ghost with a conscience. Where is she? I asked. Everywhere, and nowhere, but she left you this. He handed me a metal box, no keyhole, just a single etched word on the lid. Twaswesk proof. Twaski asterisk mask, and my eye? We opened it back in London. Inside, a sealed envelope, a thumb drive, and a note. The note read, Greater than Callista, greater than you, don't know me, but I know you. I saw you the day you turned down the fake job your father offered in Monaco. I knew then. You wouldn't bend. That meant you would break. Greater than, this drive contains evidence your father buried even from his inner circle. The thing that started all of it. Obsidian wasn't a code name, it was a person. And she died for the truth. Greater than, you're not just ending a dynasty. Greater than you're exposing a system. Greater than I'll be in touch. Greater than I plugged in the drive. Files loaded instantly. Rows of project names. One in bold. Tiles loaded anew to the inside. Emails, audio logs, encrypted files, and one image. A girl in a hospital bed. Face pale. Tubes in her arms. Identified only as Subject 0.1, Obsidian. Date, March 3, 1993. I stared at the photo. Something in my chest collapsed. Because that girl was my mother. She was the prototype, Rowan whispered. Obsidian wasn't a project. It was an experiment. Alina grabbed the table to steady herself. What kind of experiment? Quote. I clicked a second file. A medical transcript? Greater than subject shows high tolerance to neurochemical recalibration. Introduced recombinant protocol successful. Emotional dampening evident. Memory fracture initiated. Long-term loyalty conditioning in progress. I blinked. They reprogrammed her. Rowan looked stricken. She wasn't always the way she was. They made her that way. Your father didn't just build a cold empire. He engineered the people to run it. Alina whispered. That's why she never touched me. Why she spoke in riddles. She was altered. I reached for the last file. A video. We clicked play. My mother sat in a white room, younger, calmer. A doctor off-screen asked, Subject 0.1, who is your daughter? She paused. My legacy. And what is her purpose? To survive the fire. We sat in silence. Then Rowan stood. We go public again. No, I said, not yet. If we drop this now, they'll label it as fringe madness. We do this carefully. Let them speak first. Who? The board. Ari. I called a meeting. Legally, I was still listed as a silent trustee. They couldn't stop me. Rowan arranged the location, an old shareholder auditorium in Edinburgh once used to host quarterly reports. 14 board members arrived, each escorted, each wearing masks of civility. I walked to the center of the stage. Alina sat front row, a silent witness. You built an empire on people's backs, I began, on engineered loyalty, on silence, on shadows. No one interrupted. You made my mother a ghost. You made my sister a prisoner. You made me a pawn. Still silence. You thought you could erase us, but here we are, and now I give you a choice. I pulled the drive from my coat. Resign, disband, liquidate your power, or I press one button and send this to every governing body from Geneva to The Hague. One man stood. This isn't how negotiations work. It is now. Rowan placed a contract on each of their desks. One by one, they signed. 3 hours later, the Moreau dynasty was officially dismantled. Property holdings were frozen. Equity firms dissolved. Nonprofits redistributed to independent boards. News anchors scrambled. Markets trembled. But for the first time in my life, I felt free. That night, I sat beside Alina in the safe house garden. The wind was warm, the stars unbothered. What now? She asked. We rebuild, not as heirs, as people. She nodded, then asked, Do you think she ever loved us? Quote. I looked at the sky. I think, in some part of her, untouched by conditioning or control, she knew she was our mother, and she gave us the only thing she could, the truth buried just deep enough for us to find. Alina smiled faintly. I hope she's at peace. I squeezed her hand. So do I. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. Greater than watching from the distance. She'd be proud. Greater than Noxriza Wesher. And I smiled. Because I believed her. The morning after the board fell, I walked alone through a park near the Thames. I didn't bring security, didn't check the headlines, didn't even carry a burner phone, just a paper notebook and a pen. For the first time in years, the weight on my shoulders didn't belong to anyone else. No dynasty. No disguise. Just me. Back at the safe house, Rowan was on the phone with Interpol. Alina was upstairs, asleep for once without nightmares. When I walked in, Rowan waved me over. She held out a printout. This came in 20 minutes ago. It was a court summons. Filed by Dorian Black, my parents' original lawyer. But the name at the top wasn't mine. It was Alina's. They're coming after her now, I said. They've regrouped. Your father and mother are still under separate house arrest, but Dorian has access to assets we didn't lock. A silent investor group. They're attempting to challenge her legal identity. They want to erase her all over again. Rowan nodded grimly. They're calling her an imposter. An infiltrator. They want her declared a fabrication of yours, made to manipulate the legal dissolution of the trust. Then we prove she's real. Rowan arched an eyebrow. You already proved that. DNA testing, school files, even her testimony. No, I said. I mean, we prove she belongs. I didn't mean with a bloodline. I meant with the truth. The next morning, I returned to the vault beneath the manor. Alina came with me. Iris was waiting. You brought her back, Iris said softly. She brought herself, I replied. Alina stood at the center of the bunker, touching the edges of filing cabinets that held her childhood in code and ink. I remember this smell, she said. Dust. And polish. And the cold. Do you remember anything else? I asked. She looked at me. I remember a man. He had a scar on his wrist. He used to bring me paper cranes. Iris blinked. That was Daxton. Who? The one guard who broke rank. Your father found out. Daxton disappeared the next day. Quote, Alina reached into her jacket and pulled something from her pocket. A tiny paper crane. Yellowed from time. He told me to hide it. Said one day someone would ask about him, and if I could remember his name, it meant I hadn't been erased. We took the story public. Not through interviews or legal arguments. Through art. Rowan contacted a friend at a major European gallery. The vault materials were anonymized, preserved, and presented as an installation titled Nimes Asterisk Paper Cranes, The Lives the Dynasty Tried to Forget. Asterisk. Alina's story was one of many. But hers drew the crowd. She stood at the center of the exhibit on opening night, surrounded by photographs, journals, voice snippets, and preserved childhood drawings, framed as artifacts of survival. And when the cameras rolled, she didn't flinch. I don't want revenge, she said. I want recognition. I want the world to know that I existed, even when they tried to pretend I didn't. And they listened. Bilirak. Dorian Black tried to file an emergency injunction to stop the exhibit. It failed. The judge ruled it a public educational effort backed by verified evidence and artistic protection. We didn't just win. We rewrote the narrative. Alina was no longer a shadow. She was a witness, and the world believed her. A week later, I received an anonymous envelope. Inside was a single page. A list of names. At the top, Dahmer Lummer Obsidian, Alpha Reserve. I passed it to Rowan. Her eyes narrowed. These aren't associates. They're progeny. What do you mean? These are people like Alina, hidden, registered under internal code systems. Project continuations. I felt the blood drain from my face. You're saying there are more? Yes, at least 7, possibly more, born into silence. Raised like ghosts. Alina stepped forward. Then we find them. We don't know who they are, where they are, or if they're still alive, Rowan warned. We'll find out. The search began quietly. Rowan created a secure portal, a digital sanctuary where survivors could submit stories, clues, even old photos anonymously. We hired forensic analysts, data archivists, even linguists to help decode old files. And slowly, they came. First one, then 2 more, then a 4th who emailed simply, Greater than I thought I was the only one. The portal became a mosaic of resilience. They weren't clones. They weren't experiments. They were children. Hidden, isolated, forgotten. Now, found. One of them, a woman named Faye, had been working as a translator in Oslo. She'd always wondered why she had no birth certificate before age 7. Another, a man named Levi, had a photograph with a man he later learned was the same Moreau investor caught laundering funds through Eastern Europe. Each had a breadcrumb. Each had trauma. But each had survived. And we gave them a name. Tumps Trice, the Obsidian Network. I met with Faye at a cafe in Paris. She held my hand across the table, eyes wet. I used to dream about sisters, she said. Isn't that strange? I didn't even know I had a name that wasn't assigned to me. I squeezed her hand. You have a name, and you have a future. We all do. Back in London, Rowan received word. Dorian Black had fled to Dubai. Interpol issued a warrant. My father tried to appeal his house arrest. Denied. My mother sent a letter. 2 sentences. Greater than you win. Greater than I don't know who I was anymore. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. That night, Alina joined me on the rooftop terrace. Do you think we'll ever be normal? She asked. I laughed softly. What's normal? Knowing who you are? Choosing your path? Loving without fear? She nodded. Then maybe we already are. We sat together in silence as the lights of the city flickered below us. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. Greater than final name located. Greater than coordinates sent. Greater than I opened the map. Latvia. I looked at Alina. One more. She smiled. Let's go get her. Latvia in February was a poem written in frost. The air sliced like truth, cold and unapologetic. We landed just after midnight, stepping into a stillness that felt almost sacred. Rowan had arranged a convoy under the guise of a diplomatic tech delegation. No one questioned our papers. No one asked our names. Alina sat beside me, gloved fingers wrapped around a thermos of mint tea. Do you think she knows we're coming? She asked. No, I said, but I think she's been waiting. The coordinates led to a rural village outside Rezekne, an old post-Soviet building turned residential home. Concrete walls, peeling paint, a sagging roof weighed down by snow. We stopped 100 yards away. Rowan handed me the file. Her name is Mila, age 27, assigned surname Kirstova, adopted under questionable circumstances by a government contact with ties to the Moreau network. No digital history until 2014. So she's one of us. She might be the last. Quote, I stepped out alone. Alina insisted on watching from the car. The door creaked when I knocked. A young woman opened it. She looked at me like I was a reflection she didn't remember stepping away from. Are you Mila Kirstova? Who's asking? Someone like you, someone who didn't choose their name. A long silence passed. Then she stepped aside. Her apartment was small, but warm, minimalist, a canvas of simplicity and control. You speak English? I asked. Fluently, and French, German, Mandarin. Of course you do. She didn't smile. You came for the others. You know about them. Not names, just patterns. I was told once, in passing, there were 12. 6 who never made it past infancy, 5 who disappeared, and 1 who would come back. You think that's me? I know it is. Your face is on a file they kept locked under glass. Who raised you? Mila walked to a small desk and returned with a faded photograph. His name was Vakoslav, ex-intelligence. Trained me like an asset, kept me off-grid, gave me books, taught me how to survive. Her voice lowered. He died 2 years ago. Heart attack. Did he tell you who you were? He told me who they wanted me to be, and who I could still choose to become. We brought her back with us. Not as a trophy, not as a loose end. As a sister. The Obsidian Network, now had 10 confirmed survivors: Faye, Levi, Mila, Alina, and me, and 5 more who had chosen to remain anonymous for now. The story didn't stay quiet for long. The BBC aired a 3-part documentary, The Children of Silence. Footage of Mila went viral, her composure, her calm dismantling of the word victim. "I'm not broken," she said. "I was never broken. I was hidden." But not all of the responses were celebratory. One morning, Rowan found a dead bird nailed to our safe house door. A message written on parchment. "Times asterisk, you are not done bleeding. Asterisk thing." She scanned it. Old Moreau code, threat, traced to a defunct training camp in Italy. They're signaling retaliation. "Let them signal," I said. "We're not scared of echoes." But I was scared. Not for me. For Alina. For Mila. For everyone who still didn't have the language to name what had been done to them. Rowan called a press conference. This time, we didn't hold back. The Obsidian program was not one man's legacy, Rowan told the world. It was a network, built by wealth, protected by silence, and sharpened through generations. I stood beside her, hand on the microphone. "We are not here to shame survivors into confessions. We are here to say, you are real, and we believe you." That night, Isolde finally called. Not a message, not a box. Her voice. Low, clipped, emotional in the way water freezes while falling. "You did it," she said. "No," I replied. "We started it. There's one more thing you need to see." "Where?" "Athens, the Foundation's first vault, hidden beneath the original Moreau Medical Lab." "Why tell me now?" "Because it's time you understand why you were really chosen." Rowan booked the flight. Mila and Alina came with me. The building was abandoned, ivy curled through broken windows. A plaque out front still read, Moreau Biomedical Initiative. We descended through an old stairwell, found a door sealed by a rusted biometric lock. Mila knelt beside it. "Let me." She dismantled the panel in 2 minutes. The door hissed open. The room inside was cold. Shelves. Crates. And one refrigerated vault. Inside it, folders stamped Sijian Sidian Sujian Seul's Fire Sininens. Rowan pulled the first one out. Her face blanched. "These aren't test results," she said. "They're adoption contracts. Dozens. Maybe hundreds." I stepped forward. Scanned the names. Children. Infants. Dates and signatures. One in particular stood out. Nights, March 3, 1993. Subject 0.1, Callista Moreau. The birth certificate didn't list my father. It didn't list my mother either. Instead, it read, Samtes Summon Bamlo, authorized by Dr. Lenka Isolde. The room spun. Rowan steadied me. She was more than a witness. She was part of it. "She signed me into existence," I whispered. And then my phone rang. "Blocked number." I answered. Her voice, quiet. "Now you see why I disappeared. You made me. I protected you. By placing me in the lion's den? Because you were the only one who could burn it down from the inside." I ended the call. Alina wrapped her arms around me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply stood there, in the heart of a lie I had called my life, and made a decision. We would burn it all. Every lab. Every ledger. Every name who signed a soul into silence. We flew back from Athens with the fire lit under our ribs. No more cautious releases. No more strategic leaks. The time for diplomacy was over. This wasn't a family saga anymore. This was a human rights reckoning. Rowan prepared a comprehensive dossier over 400 pages long titled Nines**, The Obsidian Doctrine, A Century of Constructed Silence, **. It was distributed to every major international criminal tribunal, every UN commission, and 3 of the largest whistleblower advocacy organizations in the world. Alina wrote the introduction. Mila translated it into 5 languages. I narrated the audio version. Within 48 hours, the world caught fire. Documentaries aired in prime time. A 4-part special report on CNN detailed the full web of Obsidian, naming names, tracing money trails, exposing the exact biometric and psychological engineering tools that were used on children like us. Alina sat for an interview with the BBC in front of a sculpture made of shredded Moreau contracts. Mila testified before the European Parliament. I appeared via satellite for a closed-door session with the UN Human Rights Council. Rowan? She stood on the steps of the European Court of Justice and held up the original birth ledger. This, she said, voice like steel, is not just the fall of a family. This is the unmasking of a generation's wound. But while we went public, the old machine tried to regenerate. Dorian Black had disappeared again. Interpol issued a red notice. A new shell company emerged in Luxembourg under the name Lunaris Holdings, with language in its articles of incorporation eerily similar to the Moreau internal memos. We tracked it. It wasn't just Dorian. It was the remaining senior architects of the Obsidian network, repackaging their tactics under a new veil. I stared at the filings in disbelief. They're trying to start again. Rowan slammed her palm on the table. Then we end them for good. We returned to Vault C beneath the manor. Iris greeted us with her usual dry detachment. Back to dig up more ghosts? Back to destroy what gave them breath. We pulled every file, every hard drive, every video archive and black book that hadn't already been handed over to the authorities. Then Rowan did something I never thought I'd see. She set fire to the vault. One match. No hesitation. The flame caught on an old leather ledger, spread to tapes, notes, maps. The inferno devoured a century of secrets in 27 minutes. I stood beside Alina, hand wrapped in hers. Mila flanked us, a single tear tracking her otherwise expressionless face. We don't need their permission to end this, I whispered. Rowan turned. The blaze danced in her eyes. We never did. But the data wasn't gone. Before the fire, Rowan backed up every document into a decentralized blockchain server accessible only through a biometric and location-based verification system. This isn't erasure, she told us. It's preservation, on our terms. The world can learn, but they'll never again control it. She titled the archive, Times**, Obsidian, Not Forgotten. **. 2 weeks later, a small hearing convened in Geneva. The tribunal confirmed what we already knew, that the Obsidian program violated every conceivable law of consent, sovereignty, and dignity, that the Moreau legacy was not merely corrupt, but genocidal in spirit, erasing identities, rewriting origins, reprogramming behavior. A warrant was issued for the final round of arrests. The tribunal rulings stated, greater than asterisk, these individuals once hidden now serve as witnesses to a machinery of exploitation. Their testimonies are not revenge. They are reclamation. The world will remember. One night, I returned to the rooftop garden where it all began. Mila stood there already, gazing at the skyline. There's one thing I never told you, she said quietly. What's that? I knew about you long before you knew about me. I turned. How? She reached into her coat and handed me a photo. 2 toddlers, side by side, both with dark hair, matching blue ribbons. This was taken in the early prototype phase, you and me. That's impossible. I don't remember. They made you forget. They tried to do the same to me. But Daxton, he smuggled this out, hid it in a piano leg. Iris found it and sent it to me anonymously 3 years ago. I stared at it. My knees almost gave out. We were the first, Mila said. And now we're the ones left. That night, I dreamed of light. Not fire. Not violence. Just warmth. The kind of light that shines through a cracked window after the storm has passed. A week later, Rowan received an invitation. The United Nations. They were forming a new global oversight council for biometric ethics. They wanted representation. They wanted survivors. They wanted us. We stood in the assembly chamber in New York, beneath the sweeping curve of flags and promises. Mila read our joint declaration. Alina spoke of memory. Faye submitted the findings of our team's psychological report. And me? I closed the session. We were not born to be weapons. We were born to become something more. Not erased, not engineered, just free. The chamber rose in applause. But that wasn't the win. The win came later. Outside, when a young woman I'd never met stopped me in the plaza. She had a scar across her eyebrow, eyes wide with awe. "I think I'm one of you," she said. I smiled. "Then welcome home." We thought the fire was behind us. But revolutions don't end when you step off the podium. They begin when no one's clapping anymore. 3 days after the UN address, Rowan received an alert. Someone had attempted to breach the encrypted archive. Not digitally. Physically. A server node in Reykjavik, a cold storage vault known only to a handful of people, had been accessed using a cloned biometric print that mimicked my own. "They're still trying," I whispered. Rowan looked up. "And they're getting better." That night, I met Isolde. In person. A cafe in Geneva, no pretense, no security detail. She looked older than I expected, worn but elegant. A woman who had not escaped fire, only learned to live inside it. "You were the first file I signed," she said. "And the last you watched. I thought they'd break you. They tried. But the moment you left the manor on your own terms, I knew they'd failed. Why didn't you stop it sooner?" "Because you were the only one with the right to dismantle what you inherited." I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to thank her. I did neither. I left her there, with her cappuccino and her ghosts. And I never saw her again. Spring returned to London like a slow breath. Alina took up painting. Her portraits were abstract, but all of them had one recurring element. A girl with no face, reaching for light through glass. Mila moved to Berlin and opened a community tech center. She taught free coding workshops to women in shelters. Levi traveled across Eastern Europe, collecting stories of other silenced lives. He created a digital museum. Rowan was appointed to the Biometric Ethics Council. And me? I returned to the manor. Not to reclaim it. To give it away. I converted the estate into a refuge. For anyone erased. Runaways. Survivors of trafficking. Children born into systems that called them numbers. We called it Numbers, the Obsidian House. The first girl who arrived was 13. Eyes sharp, scars deeper. She didn't speak for 6 days. On the 7th, she asked for a violin. We bought one. She played like the silence was being pulled from her chest and made beautiful. The years passed in strange rhythm. Media attention slowed. Donations arrived from unlikely allies. Some days we woke to threats, other days to roses. Alina published a book. Mila testified at the European Court of Human Rights. And every year, on March 3rd, we held a gathering. Not a memorial. A celebration. Of resilience. Of voice. Of survival. One year, a girl no older than 10 handed me a card. Inside was a single line, written in careful pencil. Times asterisk. Thank you for not forgetting us. Asterisk. I knelt, hugged her, and whispered, "You were never forgotten. They just buried the map." Rowan retired eventually. She left me her fountain pen, a gift from her mentor. On the cap was an engraving. Pays asterisk, burn what harms, but plant what matters. Asterisk. It sits on my desk now, next to the photo of Alina, Mila, and me. 3 ghosts who learned how to live. I still get letters. From journalists. From survivors. From daughters asking if their scars mean they're part of the story too. I write back. Every time. Not because I have all the answers, but because no one else did when I was the one asking. Ions. One spring afternoon, a woman arrived at the Obsidian house. She carried a violin case. Her birth certificate had no parents listed. Her name was Anika. She looked up at me with tired eyes and asked, "Is this the place for the forgotten ones?" I shook my head. "No. This is the place where we remember." She smiled. And for the first time in her life, she unpacked her instrument. And played. There's a rhythm now. Quiet. Persistent. Like breath. Like hope. Because in the end, I wasn't chosen. I was built. But I chose what to do with it. And that made all the difference. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We never meant to become symbols. But sometimes, when history breaks, the fractures trace themselves across your skin, and the world reads your scars like scripture. Part 13 wasn't supposed to happen. We had the closure, the healing, the press cycle had passed, justice, in the eyes of most, had been served. But beneath the surface, something shifted. It began with a whisper. A photo emailed to Rowan from an encrypted address, a young girl in a hospital bed in Qatar. Dark hair, gaunt eyes. A familiar mark beneath her collarbone, the same crescent-shaped birth scar Alina bore, the same genetic anomaly found in Mila's bone scans. Attached was a single message. Greater than, she was born after Obsidian was dismantled. We convened within hours. Rowan, me, Alina, Mila, Faye, Levi, Nico. The core. It's impossible, Rowan said. There were no remaining labs, no legal registries. Then someone rebuilt the structure in silence, I said. Smaller, meaner, hidden in humanitarian clothing. We traced the metadata. It led us to a charitable medical NGO, Twojesnagar Veritas Care International. Registered in 5 countries. Linked to 7 private clinics. All backed by offshore investment firms. One of them, Lunaris Holdings. We hadn't killed the monster. We'd only made it smarter. Alina flew to Qatar first. Under the guise of a research grant, she confirmed the girl's presence. Her name was Noura. She didn't speak. She flinched at loud sounds. Her medical records were sealed by court order. But her blood showed a near-identical genome signature to mine. She was Obsidian. V2. Rowan secured a provisional custody injunction. I flew in with the papers. It took 3 days of negotiation. And 1 midnight intervention from a rogue nurse who handed us a file labeled Times Asterisk, Project Echelon, Asterisk inside, 11 profiles. Children, ages 5 to 12. 6 girls, 5 boys. One name stood out. Chams Ava Calix. Born 2021. Location, Troms classified. But under source origin, it read, Subject 0.1 DNA fragment, modified, patented. My DNA. I stared at the words like they were a mirror. They hadn't just used us as blueprints. They had literally sliced me into the next generation. We got Noura out. A private jet, Rowan's team. A fake cancer treatment transport protocol. The doctor who signed off on the release was found dead the next morning. Stage accident, the reports claimed. But we knew better. The Obsidian house took Noura in. She didn't speak for weeks. Then, one morning, she pointed to a flower in the garden and whispered, "Blue." Her first word. We cried. But the others were still out there. We formed a subnetwork, Obsidian Retrieval. Each survivor took one location. Alina led a mission in Tunisia. Mila embedded herself in a school project in the Caucasus. Faye worked through a satellite NGO in Sri Lanka. Each week, a new name, a new child. Each file sicker than the last. Some had spinal implants. Others showed signs of emotional dampening protocols, the same neural conditioning once applied to our mother. They had even created control codes, words that triggered compliance. Like seraphim, like seraphim, like time delta 7, like Sarah Mother's Cimarolese. We wiped them. One by one. Deprogrammed. Restored. Held them. Taught them how to draw with crayon instead of memorize corporate doctrine. Then came the leak. An anonymous whistleblower released 2 terabytes of internal Veritas Care documents, naming sponsors, naming countries, naming us. They knew we were coming, and they didn't plan to run. They planned to fight. That's when Rowan disappeared. Vanished during a stopover in Nairobi. Last security cam footage showed her boarding a car with tinted windows, no license plates, no tracking. We launched a full alert. Interpol, local agencies, even off-grid bounty teams. Nothing. But then I received a letter. Handwritten. Delivered to the Obsidian House garden by a teenage boy who said only, "She said you'd understand." Inside. Greater than Callista. Greater than. Greater than. If you're reading this, it means I've gone where I must. Where they still keep the root alive. Greater than. Greater than do not follow. Not yet. Greater than. Greater than. Let them think they've won. Greater than. Greater than. I have one last story to finish writing. Greater than. Greater than. Protect the children. Greater than. Greater than. Protect yourself. Greater than. Greater than. R. I held the letter against my chest for a long time. Then I walked to the piano and began to play. Not for grief, but for resolve. There would always be another head of the Hydra. But now we had a sword, and 10,000 witnesses, and a house full of children who laughed louder than fear. So yes, the dynasty ended. But the legacy we built? It had just begun. And this time it belonged to us. Part 14 began not with fire, but with silence. The kind of silence that follows a storm too big to name, where the air feels wrong and you can't tell if the world is waiting to rebuild itself or for another collapse. Rowan was still missing, and every second she stayed gone was a reminder that we weren't done. Not even close. I kept rereading her note. Do not follow, not yet. But she knew me better than anyone alive. She knew I would follow. She just hoped I'd wait long enough to be ready. The Obsidian House thrived even as we planned for war. We now had 27 children, each with different needs, each with their own shadows. Mila built a psychological triage unit in the West Wing. Alina developed new behavioral desensitization protocols based on empathy and music. We called it the Hollow Recovery Model, named for the feeling they all described when asked what their memories felt like. Hollow. And yet they laughed, drew, learned, healed. Meanwhile, I gathered the old team. Nico. Faye. Even Sebastian Lorne, whose crimes had turned to testimony after he gave up every name he had left in exchange for a monitored life in Berlin. He owed us everything. And he knew it. We created a tactical dossier named *Ashes of Obsidian*. It had one goal: find Rowan. We traced encrypted communications out of Nairobi to 3 possible locations. 1. A defunct telecom relay near Lake Turkana. 2. An abandoned observatory once used for illegal gene trials. 3. A subterranean medical facility beneath a repurposed oil refinery. We split into teams. Mila and Nico took the relay. Faye and Levi took the observatory. I took the refinery. I disguised myself as a contractor for Lunaris Holdings. Used credentials lifted from a compromised Veritas fund manager. The refinery was surrounded by scorched brush and silence, but the air hummed. Something was still breathing underground. I entered with forged ID and a biometric patch that mimicked the signal of known insiders. They waved me through. The underground levels stank of bleach and blood. The hallways were quiet. Too quiet. Then I heard it. A voice. Hoarse, low. Callista. I turned. Rowan stood in a glass cell, handcuffed, bruised, but alive. I ran to the panel. How did they get you? I let them. What? They have something worse than obsidian. They call it Night Eidolon, asterisk. What is it? Not children, not clones, not enhancements. It's simulation, neural, remote-triggered behavior models. They're building ghosts inside real people, controllable, erasable. Why didn't you tell us? Because I had to see it, prove it, get the code. She pressed her hand to the glass. It's in my pocket. Flash drive. Take it. Run. Burn the world with it. Then the alarms went off. I grabbed the flash drive. Ran. Smoke filled the tunnels. Gunfire echoed. I don't remember escaping. I only remember waking up in the back of a moving truck, with Alina holding my hand and Mila driving like the world was ending. We found you by drone, Alina said. You were bleeding and holding this. Quote, she showed me the drive. We got Rowan out. 2 days later. Through a coordinated siege involving 3 legal firms, 1 humanitarian front, and a well-timed UN-sanctioned threat. She was thinner, older. But when she stepped off that plane and saw us, she smiled. Told you not to follow. I hugged her like oxygen. Told you I never listen. That night, we decrypted the flash drive. Inside was the Eidolon protocol. It detailed a program designed to override personality and memory through digital input signals. Each subject had an implanted receptor, undetectable, nanoscale, grown organically through prenatal tissue engineering. They weren't conditioning children. They were pre-programming them for activation, like weapons, like puppets. We uploaded the Eidolon archive to the Geneva Ethics Tribunal. Classified briefing. With our combined testimony. The tribunal issued immediate sanctions against Veritas Care, Lunaris Holdings, and 4 complicit governments. A new international code of biometric rights was drafted within a week. They named it the Obsidian Accord. In the days that followed, I returned to the garden where the children played. Nora was painting. Tiny brush strokes. Delicate blues. She looked up and said, I had a dream you were gone. I was. Don't be again. I smiled. I won't. Not until every ghost is free. In the distance, the wind shifted. Not cold, not violent, but watchful. Like history was still watching. Waiting. For the last note. Part 15 began with a funeral. Not a traditional one. There was no casket. No hymns. No black veils or sobbing pews. Just 32 survivors gathered in the garden of the Obsidian House, each holding a single matchstick and a note card with a name. A name of someone they once were. A name given to them by the program. Not one of their choosing. We burned them all. And from the smoke we began again. The Eidolon protocol was dismantled. Publicly. Loudly. Thanks to Rowan's testimony and the combined evidence in the flash drive, 3 international agencies raided the remaining Veritas labs. 4 nations severed diplomatic ties with the biotech funders. The tribunal declared the program a Category 1 global human rights violation. And for the first time in history, a data structure was granted personhood rights. The Obsidian Archive. Our stories. Legally protected. Permanently preserved. But even as the world clapped for us, we knew better. The people who funded this nightmare didn't vanish. They pivoted. One rebranded as a nutrition tech startup in Sweden. Another embedded itself into a rehabilitation nonprofit in Argentina. We watched them. Every week. Every dollar. We weren't soldiers anymore. We were shepherds of vigilance. And we were not alone. By the end of that year, 47 survivors had joined the Obsidian network. Some were silent. Some loud. Some taught. Some disappeared into quiet corners of the world, healing in their own way. But none were forgotten. Because that was the promise. We don't forget. Rowan eventually left public life. She moved to a small cottage in the north of Scotland and wrote a memoir called A Story to the Children We Buried. It won every award they could hand her. She donated every cent to the house. She mailed me a letter once. Greater than, you are not a case study. You are not a weapon. You are the bell that rings when the system forgets how to listen. Alina married. To a quiet artist who understood that trauma isn't fixed, it's tended like a garden. They adopted 2 daughters. Every birthday, Alina tells them a story about a girl who lived in a greenhouse and learned how to open the door. Mila became a legislator. She authored the Global Consent Act. Her first line in every speech, "They tried to edit our humanity, but we rewrote it in our own hand." And me? I stayed. At the Obsidian House. Every morning I write. Not exposés, not legal files. Just letters. To each new child who arrives, I leave them under their pillow on their first night. The same words every time. Greater than you are not broken. Greater than you are not what they did to you. Greater than you are the next line in a story they never learned how to end. One evening, a girl named Hannah asked if I ever missed the old life. The power, the money, the events, she said, sitting cross-legged in the garden. I laughed, then shook my head. I was never really part of it. But you could be. No, sweetheart. That world ended the day I got that note on my coffee cup. She blinked. The wedding note? The one that said... I nodded. Wedding's off. Expect a call from my lawyer. We laughed. Together. Free. Now every year on March 3rd we gather. All of us. In person or by stream. We light 32 candles. One for every ghost turned human again. We hold hands. We share names. We dance. And we remind the world that we are not legends. We are not mysteries. We are the daughters of silence. And we have found our voices. Thank you for walking with us. Thank you for remembering. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.